Good afternoon. On behalf of Delhi Study Circle of Insolvency Professionals, I welcome the respected speaker, Shri Vijay Iyer and all the participants. I am Nayan Handa, Associate Member of ICSI and a practicing company secretary with over 6 years of experience, including 4 years of freelancing experience. I deal in corporate laws and other industrial laws along with the trademark and GST matters. As per our Indian tradition, we start any learning program with the blessings of Ma Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. So requesting you all to mute their mics for disturbance-free Ma Saraswati Vandana. हम सब आशा करते हैं कि माँ सरस्वती हम पर अपनी कृपा बनाए रखें. Now, I'm requesting all the participants to keep their mic on mute to avoid any disturbance due to the background noise. Please unmute only when requested to speak or when you want to raise a query during the question answer sessions. If you have a query, please raise your hand or send a message in the chat box. The session will be recorded and uploaded on YouTube channel of the Study Circle. Now, I would like to give you a brief introduction about the Delhi Study Circle of Insolvency Professionals. It is a platform for knowledge sharing, developing best practices, and supporting the professional practice intimacy. The study circle was established in August 2017, and since then, it has been regularly organizing workshops, seminars, and discussions. The study circle is also managing a group on Telegram. This is the platform for members to interact on issues facing them and to share and enhance their knowledge. The topic for today's discussion is preparation for and taking control of the corporate debtors under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. And we have the privilege of having Shri Vijaykumar V. Iyer with us to share his rich and varied out of a very busy schedule. Shri Vijay sir has over 20 years of experience as a merger and amalgamation specialist in the field of financial analysis and transaction support. He has worked on over 400 domestic and cross-border amalgamation actions. He has also in the UK and Singapore offices
We are not able to hear.
Uh, Nayan, you are muted. Nayan, please unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yeah, now you're audible. Now you're audible. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, I unmuted myself. The topic for the today discussion
You may repeat
is
the
preparation
introduction again.
for and taking control of the corporate debtors under the Yes, sir?
Can repeat his introduction because the voice was not audible.
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes, sorry. Shri Vijay sir has over 20 years of experience as a merger and amalgamation specialist and in the fields of financial analysis and transaction support. He has worked on over 400 domestic and cross-border merger and amalgamation transactions. He has also worked in the UK and Singapore offices of Deloitte. Sir is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and an associate member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Welcome, Vijay sir. As a token of our gratitude and keeping in mind the urgent need to protect and preserve our environment, we had adopted a practice to plant 2 trees on behalf of the invited speakers. Bal Prada, an NGO working for environment, is our green partner for planting the trees. Now, I would like to request and invite the founder and convener of the study circle, Shri Madhusudan Sharma ji, for displaying the tree certificate and for his brief introductory address.
Thank you, Nayan, for starting it in time and giving a brief about the study circle. So this is in honor of Vijayji. We say in our culture, Vidya Danam Mahadanam. So today you are sharing the knowledge. So we should have a uh, equal response in the sense protecting the nature and environment. So this is a digitally signed tree certificate, but we assure you that we will have a physical, real trees grown for this. And for that, I would like to share some of the pictures so that there is a confidence among the people that yes, what we say, we do. This is our green partner, which has been doing a lot of plantation work in Delhi since 2020. And I'll just show you a few glimpses of the kind of work it has done. And this is a self-funded NGO, not a parasite NGO, depending on the funds of government and others. So this is the first project where this park was developed. And if you see what it was earlier, so the complete change in the landscape. Another area on the roadside, this was done. But unfortunately, recently, some uh, deep digging is going besides this, and these trees are in danger. That's how we love the environment. We talk a lot, but we do very little to protect. This another, we plant it on the bus stops for a natural green shade. And this is one of the DDA markets. Earlier, it was like this. So it is just to show you that yes, what we mean, we do. And another picture I would like to show the participants. You see, this is the big menace which we are facing in terms of plastic dump. And that's the reason when we started these large seminars, we decided that in our even in physical meetings, we will not use plastic bottles. And the second thing was that instead of giving mementos, we will plant 2 trees for each of the speaker. And that was the reason we decided these two things. Now, I'll slightly add on to the introduction of the study circle, which Nayan has given. This was formed for giving equal opportunity to the members. So if you have seen from our earlier programs, the organizational responsibility rotates among the members, and we give opportunity to our own members to present their cases or discuss case studies or wherever they had some experience. So it is like developing the capacity of the members also to share knowledge within the group and to develop professional relationship which could be helpful in the professional practice. And that's why I invite all the people to voluntarily come forward and suggest if they want to share their knowledge or experience in any of the seminars later on. Once in a quarter, we invite eminent personalities from outside the group, and that's how Vijay is here today. Otherwise, mostly our own members will share their experience in that platform. So we are trying to keep it open and equal opportunity for all the members. Now, the second thing which I would like to discuss is regarding how we got an opportunity to talk to you and invite you as a speaker. In fact, in the very first program of this study circle, Dr. Sahu consented to be the key speaker. And it was a great privilege for us. Then we could have Mrs. Mukuluta Vijayvargiya, the whole-time director, then the technical member and other people. But the only thing which was pinching us that we were not able to have an IP from one of the big 12 cases. And they were more unreachable rather. And in fact, we tried a number of times and they were quite busy and they couldn't spare the time. So this time, when I was having some of the sessions in Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs for the Graduate Insolvency Program 2020, incidentally, I was asked one day to reschedule my sessions because a very important and high profile IP is going to give a session. And that day when I joined, it was Vijayji whose session was going on, and the students were glued. They were asking a lot of questions, and he was quietly and coolly replying all the questions and sharing the insights. And at the end of the session, when Dr. Neeti gave a thanks, uh, she mentioned that Vijayji has been instrumental in designing the course curriculum for Indian graduate insolvency program, and he has been mentoring the students. So then I mustered the courage, and there itself I requested Vijayji that would you oblige us by taking a session for Delhi Study of Circle, and he was very prompt, and he said yes, anytime on Saturday, Sundays, and that's how we kept this program on Saturday. So Vijayji, thanks a lot, and we are highly obliged that we are able to have an IP from one of the large cases so that members will get the insights about how these large cases are being handled. And thanks a lot. And over to you, Nayan, for inviting Vijayji to start his session. Thanks to all the participants and thanks to Vijayji once again.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the introductory remark. Now I request Sir Shri Vijay, sir, to start the experience sharing session. And sir has also kindly agreed to take questions from the participants at the end of the session. So please send your queries and questions, if any, in the chat box. Vijay, sir, it's over to you.
Thank you, Nayan. And thank you, Mr. Sharma, for your very warm and very generous sentiments on a Saturday evening. You know, it is said that professionals should avoid having any delusions of grandeur, and particularly resolution professionals should clearly avoid any delusions of grandeur because we are, given the pedestal of officer of court. You said that you're taking charge of a company. The entire management, all directors will report to you. All decisions will be taken in your name. So it's quite easy for a professional to have delusions of grandeur, or a resolution professional. And I keep trying to assuage myself that there is a lot that I have to be modest about, and therefore modesty should come naturally. But it's very kind of you to give me these few moments of delusions of grandeur once again on a Saturday evening. Thank you, sir. And I must reveal to all that before Mr. Sharma had a chance to participate in the session, which I facilitated with the IICA, I had the honor and privilege of listening to Mr. Sharma and in an earlier webinar. I forget which IP had organized it, where he had analyzed the Binani cement case study, apart from others. It was very early during the pandemic, Mr. Sharma, and I was a participant, and I learned a lot from you. Thank you very much. And I therefore take respected professionals, all of you all, I take this as an opportunity for each of us to learn. I'll share whatever little I know and whatever I've learned. I have actually had the honor and privilege of working with some outstanding professionals, either in my firm or whether at the Committee of Creditors. I acknowledge the presence of Mr. Rajesh Sheth, ex-senior officer of State Bank of India, who I've learned a lot with at the COC. And I know he's going to watch me to ensure that I don't say anything out of hand today. And there are many others who I would like to call out on, not specifically by name, who have guided me to ensure that we try and do what we can. So thank you once again for this honor and privilege to participate in this session. I commend the Delhi Study Circle that clearly one of the critical elements of ensuring that we remain professionals, resolution professionals, fulfilling our responsibility to society, is that we must remain professionally relevant. And the relevance of professionally relevance with all the number of cases which are being heard, the number of circulars and notifications, regulations. I heard today morning that there were over 70 such circulars, notification, regulations over and above the amendments to the basic law. And keeping in track with all of this is always a challenge, apart from the practical difficulties all of us face as a resolution professional on our projects. So this information sharing, knowledge sharing is a very commendable pursuit, and I commend the entire Delhi Study Circle, Mr. Sharma, Ms. Nayan, and all other office bearers. Thank you very much. And the other point I would like to start off to commend the Delhi Study Circle is your key initiative on climate sustainability. Recently, again, I had the good opportunity of hearing Thomas Friedman. Thomas Friedman is the author of the book, which is very well known, The World is Flat. He had written this book many years ago, and he is a sort of a future prophet. And he was saying that before any critical event which took place in this world, be it the financial crisis, be it anything, there was always a warning. And he identified the warning. And people asked him, what's the current crisis he sees in the world today? And he said, it is climate. The climate sustainability is the most critical event facing humanity today. And he says, we're already seeing the signs, the fires in America and Australia, the melting of the glaciers and the other icebergs in Antarctica, Arctic. And I mean, recently in India, we had that unfortunate challenge in the Upper Ganges, right? So all these are actually warning signs to humanity that if we do not take care of climate and we are not deliberate in our attempts to sustain the climate and environment, it will rebound. So, Mr. Sharma, thank you very much. Every effort, as they say that, little drops of water, little grains of sand makes our mighty ocean and our beautiful land. So it is every effort. So thank you very much. So with those opening comments, ladies and gentlemen, respected fellow professionals, let me have the privilege of sharing some thoughts with you on the running of a CRP process. Mr. Sharma, I hope my screen is visible.
Visible. It is visible.
Thank you. So again, I must commend Mr. Sharma and other colleagues who developed this particular session. We have had many sessions on running of the CRP process. But the fact that there's a deliberate attempt to not just look at that, but look at the preparations. I think that's very important. Many resolution professionals, what happens is that you become an insolvency professional, you complete your exams, you get the certificate, you say, great, fantastic, I am now an insolvency professional. All I have to do is get my first case, and then I will start learning, or I will start applying whatever I've learned. The answer is no. Now, either we need to understand that there's a lot which preparation, which works, which needs to be done even before the CRP. And that's what we're trying to look at today. If I could use an analogy, the CRP process is literally a 100-meter sprint because you have critical timelines. You may think that a year is a long period, particularly through the pandemic, but a year in a CRP goes in a flash. And for that preparation, and it is an uphill climb. It is an uphill climb, as the picture also suggests. And if we therefore don't prepare enough, we are going to get lost. All athletes, even if it's a 100-meter sprint, which gets over in 10 seconds, it doesn't mean the preparation is also equal. It's only 10 seconds of preparation. No, you need to prepare for months together before you're able to make that sprint. So similarly, ladies and gentlemen, if I may be able to present to you respectfully some of the points which I thought we would need to keep in mind, apart from running the CRP process. If I go to the next slide, that it is not just the residue process, which is items, but let us look at some of the elements which have to be done before. So if I could use the analogy of a sprint. So you have 3 stages before the actual race starts, which is on your marks, get set, go. So let us look at on your marks, which is your first stage of preparation, which is as a resolution professional. Ladies and gentlemen, I will try and ensure that I try and complete what I have to say in the next half an hour to 40 minutes. And then we'll have enough time to discuss any questions, comments, feedback. We could do it together. With that, may I continue? So first is, let us understand that the resolution professional has multiple areas of focus. We tend to forget that it is many areas. We think that it's only running a CRP process and achieving a resolution plan. No. If you look at, he's right now at the nerve center, and there are over almost 8 areas, and there'll be many more. But if I look at it, 8 clear focus areas, and each requiring full-time focus, which a resolution professional must prepare. It's not just the process, the entire process. And the claim verification is a separate stream of work. Running the corporate debtor, compliances of the corporate debtor, other regulatory compliances, the finance and accounts function, and then managing various stakeholders, the committee of creditors, the promoters, the employees, are all key functions that a resolution professional must remember. And in this, let us see how it has evolved. Again, I commend the study circle for almost completing 4 years, right from August 17, when you all set up. The environment today for a resolution professional is not that optimistic, if I may use that word. There are many challenges. And what you may suggest that you can boldly do today, it could be clearly disallowed tomorrow. There is continuous evolution of the ecosystem, continuous evolution of all the guidelines, and everybody is looking at the resolution professional to be the one to take the call, to guide everybody else, and ensure that it is run the right way. So it's only upon us to take on this responsibility and take ownership for all our actions. And that is, again, an important mindset I would urge all of us fellow resolution professionals to keep in mind before we start a project. And the second point I would like to make, or perhaps the third point in terms of preparation as a resolution professional, first is to be conscious of all the, shall I say, the 8 areas of work. Second, be conscious of the pressures the ecosystem is putting to you. And third, be conscious of all the pressures the stakeholders are putting to you. It is very often said that the resolution professional is nobody's friend and everybody's enemy. Everybody believes, every stakeholder believes that the resolution professional is being partial to somebody else. Within the committee of creditors, one banker believes the resolution professional is partial to somebody else. Or the committee of creditors per se will believe that the resolution professional is hand in gloves with the promoter. And the promoter believes that the resolution professional is taking away his company. And these challenges the resolution professional will face. But to keep that in mind, and I've said this to a few people, if you look at it in the entire process, every other stakeholder generally is either a group of individuals or an institution. The only person who is a single individual is the RP. And that is why he's the easiest target to be blamed. And therefore, there is multiple litigation, there is grievances, and these tend to go on even after the CRP. So be mindful that even after you completed running the race and achieved a successful resolution, your work isn't over. You have to still take care of some of the challenges post that. So this is the context of on your marks. The second element before we start a project as a resolution professional is the preparations. And again, in the beginning, I do remember when we set up when we took on the initial projects, it was significant effort because it was all new. I remember one meeting where we started at 6 o'clock in the evening after finished the day's work. And a bunch of us, it was about 10 of us in our office. There were about three partners, myself and two others. We were made aware that the case would get admitted soon. And the NCLT was going to admit this case soon. So therefore, we were all ready for the preparations. It started at 6 o'clock in the evening, ladies and gentlemen, and that meeting did not get over till 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was only, we were discussing only all the things we had to do on day one and all the things that had to get done in the first few days of taking charge of the corporate debtor. That is the level of detail, that is the level of effort all of us must appreciate is required to run any process. So let's look at it. So right now, even at the proposal stage, let us take it the simple example when a financial creditor reaches out to you as a resolution professional and seeks proposal on the effort. I must respectfully submit that some of us forget the level of effort required and then the number of resources, and we are very keen to take on an assignment. So there is sometimes, shall I say, a misassessment of the cost, misassessment of the effort, and we're in that, shall I say, exaggerated keenness to take an assignment, we may undercut each other in terms of our fees. And then we realize that the amount of effort which is actually required is significantly more. And we always regret that we did not prepare earlier. So right from the proposal stage, there are multiple things one needs to do. How much ever one can understand about the employees, how much ever one can understand about the corporate debtor, the structure in which it is, whether it is a subsidiary company, holding company, is there a potential of a group insolvency? Who could be the committee of creditors? Is there going to be any dominant player there? That automatically causes challenges. And there is one case where we had a parallel liquidation which initiated in the High Court. It was a provisional liquidation. And it's quite possible that as you go through the process, which we did, the High Court then passed orders saying, hang on, we need to look at this. We need to understand whether these two processes could go, what happens to this process, because arguably the provisional liquidation started before the commencement of the CRP process. So then the whole thing went on hold for some time. Only now we are seeing some cases which is sorting out. Even the Supreme Court recently sorted out some of these matters, saying the ITC prevails. But there is still, shall I say, the lack of considered decisions which we could use as being the basis for multiple things in a CRP. Still, there is still a lot of openness on multiple matters. And then you have a different kind of creditors and who would be raising it. So the more we learn about the corporate debtor, even at the proposal stage, would help us as resolution professionals to make a better assessment of the effort and therefore the timing, the level of resources required. And I must say, this is only the first few pieces of a large jigsaw puzzle. The second element, apart from the proposal stage, is then the planning stage. The first is mindset. Please be aware that this is a full-time process. Again, I think quite a few of us have burnt our fingers where we say, okay, chalo, let us put in as many proposals as we can. We'll see which one we get. And the problem is, you will have the problem of plenty. It'll happen that for a few months, you'll have nothing, and suddenly there'll be 3-4 cases which will all come together. And then you'll realize that you're short for resources. So please don't take on more than you can chew, is one of the critical guidance I got even earlier on. In the beginning, there were many cases which in that point of time, I was forced to take charge of. But then I realized that it is not an easy task. And it's only that you won't be able to do justice to your job. And now, in fact, the job is getting actually more onerous. So it's important to prepare the team, understand what the organization structure, particularly in a large organization. It's impossible for one individual as a resolution professional to take charge of an entire organization, right? So you need to have your team would actually mirror that organization structure. You start putting it together. You'll only know about it once you get into it. But now is the time to say, okay, how many people do I need? At which location? How many locations are there? How many people do I need to keep at each location? And who should be the legal team? Do I need a separate compliance team? These are important critical things. And one element which we forget as professionals is the criticality of data. We assume that data will be there if it's a large company. The answer is no. Sometimes the larger the company, more complex and more messier is the data. Let's come to next point. After we've given our proposal, if it's accepted and the matter is before the NCLT, we tend to forget about it. I would again urge and caution all of us to say no. Please stay connected. One very handy tool I found was set a Google alert. Set the Google alert for the name of the corporate debtor. And Google will very kindly give you every day a list of matters which got identified. Maybe 80% is not worthwhile, is not fruitful, is not useful news, but the balance 20% will be. You'll be able to track, is there any litigation which is happening? Is there anything against the promoters? Is there anything new on the operations? Has key management left? Are there any new contracts? Are there been any employee or labor issues which have surfaced? Because once this becomes it's public record that the matter is being heard at the NCLT, all grievances come up. Or have the authorities, various tax authorities, regulatory authorities, raising, because now they've got very smart. They've understood that once this matter gets into CRP, their claims, their liability, their processes could also get impacted. So even the other regulatory authorities are now got more alert. So it is important that as soon as, even when the matter is being, shall I say, heard at the NCLT, not to sit back and relax, no. Even now at this point in time, it requires continuous intervention by, shall I say, still the potential IRP to stay in touch with the applicant. It's in, I will respectfully say, as far as comes to bankers have a lot of information. They keep it very well compiled, and particularly our public sector banks, I must say, they are very methodical on this. But they will not proactively give it to you. You need to seek it. You need to ask. You need to formally ask for it. And we have found that that works very well. It's a very good record for both the resolution professional and the bank applicant, because they would have named you. So you already signed confidentiality agreements with them. So it's quite possible that if you ask them, listen, could you please share with me, as your resolution professional, you're named me in your application to the court, so please share with me the information that you have about the corporate data, maybe even the latest filings the corporate data has made with you. What else do you know about the management, the promoters, the locations, the total amount of debt, the defaults which have happened? Any such information, if we formally ask for it, it's very useful. You don't need to wait for the matter to be admitted to then start asking for it. I would suggest that it's too late. To try and get all this information earlier, the better. So now that is the level of preparations, ladies and gentlemen, required to be done. And then you start the race. You start taking control. To take control, You will find this, I think this is quite prevalent now. As soon as you're appointed and the order comes out, you will get a surge of emails in your inbox from a variety of people, starting with advertising agencies. All will start calling you. Valuers will call you, they will send their emails saying, please appoint us, security agencies, and you see this whole list which I have put down here. And it's there, and you will get extremely distracted from your key areas of focus if you do not sort all this out before. If you're not mindful that, listen, I need to ensure that I need to get all these appointed to the extent required. Please be mindful that you don't need all of these for every project. The answer is no. It's not that on every project you have to appoint an independent transaction auditor to. In one project, for example, there was no information. The financial statements had not been written up for 2 years prior to the CRP. Then what TRAs are you going to get done? Because if the period of review is only 2 years, and for 2 years no accounts have been written, even if you appoint a third party, it's a waste of money. So therefore, we took it upon ourselves, the RP and my team, to review transactions, whatever we could look at, whatever the information from the claims information, and then we did it ourselves. It's not blindly that you have to appoint this long list of external parties for every project. You have to ensure, is value being delivered? Is it there tangible, measurable, attributable impact? Each of such advisor. Valuers, you're required to by law, but be mindful which valuers are. Security agency is very critical if there are multiple locations. Be mindful of which is the existing security agency. Again, it's not a simple answer that you can replace. We found that in one case, it is not possible to replace a security agency because that existing security agency had some very, shall I say, significant political influence and backing. And therefore, what we did was we appointed another security agency only from a supervisory role. So who oversaw what was happening by the existing security agency. So we limited the extent of deployment, but still, arguably, we were still in control. It's no longer the existing security agency. So that's another sort of, shall I say, jugaad solution you may have to deploy on any such project. Day zero. And day zero, mindful, it's not just one day, it could be a long day, it could be a long week or even a month by the time you sort all this out. But it is critical. These are critical elements which need to be done when you start taking control. Again, we forget some of these things because, again, like I said right in the very first slide, because of those 8 functions that you have, you are pulled in multiple directions. So unless you are able to identify in your team a specific individual for each matter. So what we have used this term called SPOC. SPOC meaning single point of contact, SPOC, SPOC. So we have identified a SPOC, perhaps 1 or 2 for each stream of work. So there is a SPOC for, shall I say, identifying all the banks, looking at all the details of the banks, including dormant banks, including those which are potentially closed but not, and all of that, because you as an RP are required to take custody of all, list of all locations, management, key management personnel. And the important information we forget is, are they actually legally employed by the corporate debtor, or are they employed by one of the group companies? And that's what you'll find, that some of these critical employees, before the CRP or when the case is filed with the NCLT, automatically their employment is changed. They're removed from the corporate debtor and taken to the holding company. So arguably they are not answerable to you, but they are the most critical. And they'll want to be involved because they want to be the eyes and ears to the promoter. So how do you deal with such people? So that's important information that you need to try and get on day zero as well. Apart from all your regulatory information, your public announcement and all whatever else you need to do in terms of getting access to the website. In one case, we had access to the website was the one which caused the most challenge for us, because it was not held by the corporate debtor. It had been outsourced to somebody else. That person in turn had shut down. So by the time you could get to the access to the website of the corporate debtor, it actually was a couple of 2-3 weeks. So, there's a lot of information you're required to even publish on the website of the corporate debtor, which was a challenge. So each of these elements, ladies and gentlemen, require that level of focus. And I think this method of appointing SPOCs hopefully will work. The challenges which you will face on day zero. I know, and I know there will be a longer list you all will share with me as well, and I will learn from that. But some of the most critical ones, which I think we need to be conscious of, to address when you join in, like I said, was the organization structure, the fact that there could be multiple locations, and be careful, be mindful that whoever gives you this list of locations is not keen to give you the full list. They will do what is called this Narova Kunjarova, that is grayness in there. They'll give you a list of locations, then you have to explicitly ask them, is this a list of all locations? They'll say, no, this is a list of locations which are active. Then you say, give me a list of all locations. Then again, they give you a list of all locations. Then they'll say, is this a list of all locations with the corporate debtors using? They'll say, no, these are only the list of locations owned by the corporate debtor. Then you'll have to ask again, please give me a list of all locations also used by the corporate debtor, but perhaps owned by somebody else. Then they'll give you that. And then you want to say, does it again include all? Then they'll say, yes, this is that. Does it include all locations owned by the corporate debtor, but used by somebody else? And then there'll be some more locations. So you've got to be careful about what you define as when you ask that information. Because they will read it very limitedly. They will read it like a legal document, while you may want it to be as open and as you would normally understand. But no, they will not. You will get that hostility. So you will get all support short of help. Meaning, we understand what that means. So then, so that's what I mean by this passive resistance from promoters. In India, we have this great saying, everybody says yes, but actually nothing happens. हाँ हो जाएगा, आप आ जाइए, हो जाएगा, आ जाइए, हाँ कल तक मिल जाएगा. That कल never comes. So that's what we have to be alert to. Fortunately, all of us are professionals who have also tried these same tricks. So we are aware of these tricks, but be mindful that these are masters at these tricks. And therefore, to try and get that information requires consistent engagement. And you can't lose your cool, because if you do, then you hit a brick wall. Authorization signatories, there is a bit of grayness. Do you change the authorization signatories or not? Then I know there are different rulings, but what my suggestion is, you should be the signatory, but you must have checks and balances in your team. What we tried to do was, whichever was my team supporting me, there was a partner responsible. So he used to authorize, he used to vet it. We used to get the corporate debtor, senior management, or the officers to propose. They would present everything to us. So it is actually gone through a level of scrutiny. We, in turn, our team would review it. The partner would sign off, approve it. And only then, as a resolution professional, would I then finally sign off and authorize that payment. And if there was something which was difficult, which we were not very clear, we used to also take further inputs from either the technical expert or from one of our senior partners. And I used to do all that. But ultimately, be mindful that it is your responsibility. So this is on day zero challenges. Then when it comes to 3 or 4 elements in the CRP, which I'd like to focus on, I know there are multiple others, but for this purpose, from the responsibility taking control, let me talk about some of the key elements which you need to be conscious of. When it comes to operations, the responsibilities try and maintain as a going concern. But you will find that there are shortages because they're of the financial distress the company had. So you be very clear about all these elements. Which source, because you can't be a related party, the timing of it so that you get it just in time, because you don't have the financial wherewithal to hold the whole stocks. Be conscious of the quantity and what rates. And you must be able to document all this. Earlier on, when it was the corporate data, we have seen that some of the corporate, 2-3 cases we saw that it was largely promoter driven. So it was promoter driven. The paper trail was very limited because finally the promoter used to take a call on phone and says, okay, aage badho. But when you are the RP, you must be able to demonstrate every decision of yours. And for that, you require an adequate audit trail. And that can only be if you have all this paperwork. Yes. And in all this, remember, there are pressures of time. So yes, you need to set up a system in place. So in fact, again, in one very large case where purchases were running in thousands of crores, or shall I say hundreds of crores, we used to be extremely careful of how we did it. Wherever we sourcing raw materials, it had to be imported. We got a technical expert. He used to vet it. We had one of my team members was a very senior person who had, again, fortunately spent time in this industry. It was a steel asset. So he had spent time in the steel industry, understood the steel business, understood what raw material we're looking at, the iron ore, and how to time it, what the pricing is. Then the letters of credit which were required, because the company did not have financing. So ensuring that how do you pay the advance, And it took a couple of weeks before we set that system. It did cause delays in the beginning, but don't get pressurized to do something quickly rather than do it right. I'll repeat that. Don't get pressurized to do something quickly rather than do it right. You must do things right. So fine, there is a loss of 2 days, but yes, if you get it right, then you don't have to waste your time right through the CRP process, because if you do something wrong, setting it right is very difficult during a CRP process. There is going to be labor unrest. They will challenge you on payments, and I find that the best way of doing that is to stay calm and composed, to be as empathetic as possible. Empathy is not equal to sympathy. It requires you to put yourself in the shoes of that person, understand that pain, and work with him. Be transparent, be honest. Don't say, boss, you're going to get all your money in 6 months' time. That is an unfair statement. Be transparent, be clear, and explain the challenges. And the more transparent you are, the less chance that there will be further aggravation. Communication is critical, like I said. And last important point. We are, as residential professionals, sometimes at haste to change everything which is there. So there in one where it was a cement unit, there was very clear that there are certain local practices on using only certain transporters. You can't use anybody else. And those transporters were very clear that, listen, there were certain ways of dealing with them only. But then they were very respectful once they realized that we were willing to be open, transparent, and not trying to cheat behind their backs. It took time. It took a lot of effort, a lot of meetings, a lot of cups of teas and coffee, lots of samosas as well. This does impact your health and diet, but that's how you build trust. Consistently sitting, we shouted at each other, argued with each other, but thereafter we learned to trust each other when they realized that our intent was only to run the company, not to take any money out of it. And then they in fact started sharing ideas of how we could do things. And then when we started implementing them, then they realized that the trust is mutual. And that's the important thing to preserve. Cash, the next element apart from running the operations, the most critical element, or shall I say, sorry, I should not use that term, most critical. Every area you look at, there'll be somebody who will tell you that that is the most critical. Claim verification, most critical. Resolution plan, most critical. Dealing with the COC, most critical. Dealing with the authorities, most critical. Presenting yourself at the NCLT, absolutely critical. But well, I can only say that everything is critical. Yes, but only for you to prioritize. Cash is king. So that is one of the important things to understand. The points was, how do you differentiate between financial distress and economic distress? And the only way of measure is cash. Enron taught us that lesson. Cash is king. You may do all your jugglery in terms of your profitability, the way you book your accounts, the way you book your contracts, the way you push forward your expenses, you bring forward your revenues, all that element happens. Finally, you see what is happening to cash in the bank. The transactions which finally, where is the cash outflow? Where is the cash inflow? And it requires you to maintain it. We had first a cash flow, daily cash flow, then a weekly cash flow, and then a monthly cash flow. And all these things are elements, which is there on the slide, are critical when you present that cash flow, when you prepare it. The tagging element, some element of prepayment checks, so as to ensure that it is all kosher. That to differentiate what it is critical and urgent. Certain element of capex is required. Someone guided me beautifully to say, the value of things is determined by two elements. One is the value of time. As time passes, value deteriorates. The second element of value is value preservation. And as an RP, you are one more responsibility of preserving value. How do you preserve value? To ensure that certain critical, maintenance capex, certain AMCs, annual maintenance contracts, which have to be refurbished, if those are critical, those are required, critically required for you to assess that, yes, I need to spend it. For example, in one case where it was a cement unit, there was the kiln lining, and that was required to be replaced. But then there were two options. One, a cheaper option, but it was going to be for only, it could be used for the next 9 months or 6 months, or a more expensive option, which then would last for 2 to 3 years. We present both the options at the committee of creditors. You present the technical expert's view. And then you take a consensus, you take a considered decision. But be mindful, even after the COC approves, at the end of the day, it's the RP's neck which will be choked. The throat to choke is that of the RP. So you take a considered decision, you realize what is done, and then you move forward. In this case, we said, okay, fine, it doesn't make sense. We don't have the cash to go on for the more expensive but better option. We will look at the cheaper option and hope for the best that the CRP process does complete in 6 to 9 months. Luckily, it worked. Interim finance, it's not easy. There is still a challenge in terms of public sector banks, whether they are allowed to provide interim finance to an account which has become an NPA. So that is a channel which is, shall I say, not easily forthcoming. So you have to look at other source of finance, the ARCs, the other private institutions, which may not be impaired by such internal restrictions or regulatory restrictions, who would be willing to give this money. But that again is a hell of a lot of hard work. In one company, we got it. We were able to show very clearly that if we are able to reopen the plant, if we are able to run it, this is the impact it will have in the cash flows. And we had to actually prepare a weekly, monthly cash flow for the next 6 to 9 months. Go down to agonizing detail, being challenged by everybody. And finally, remember that it's the banks are giving the money on the name of the RP. They give it to the company, but there's no security, right? It's only comfort they have is that this is upfront in the waterfall mechanism, but there's no other security. But in this case, we got it. I signed for it. Luckily, we didn't need to deploy the entire amount. We deployed bit by bit, and every time we deployed, we showed how we were deploying it. And I think that transparency, that constant communication helped in the trust. And then we actually made money through that entire process. And it revived the company fantastically well. It revived production, revived sales, and we were able to generate much more cash flow and repay all of that quite easily. Lucky, shall I say. In terms of interactions management, this is a critical element, like I said, because they have their loyalties to the promoter, but it's important to deal with them, keep them close. There's an old saying which says, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. But be respectful, after all, they are professionals. It'll be unfair to suggest that they are compromised because they have their own personal challenges, because they may have spent 10, 20 years in a company being loyal to the promoter, and suddenly their promoter's gone away and they are now answerable to some fellow called RP. So it is difficult, but they are critical because there's a lot of information which is not going to be in any books, which only they know, such as claims of promoters, who are the actual related parties, where are the assets which are owned by the company but which are not used but not owned, where are those various verbal commitments, all that. It's only these critical trusted managers, and therefore being aware of who they are is important. And it won't be out of hand to suggest that one of the skills then RP must have is to be a human behavior expert. This is one element, ladies and gentlemen, which I've seen that over the last 2-3 years, we tend to forget, or we say, shall I say, we tend to deprioritize. Data is now becoming far more critical, not just for the last reason, because all investigative authorities today now believe that the RP is the one who actually has the information on any CRP process, be it the SFIO, be it the enforcement directorate, be it tax authorities. They have not been, shall I say, communicated with when the promoter was in charge. They've been always given some story or the other, and information has not been shared. As soon as the RP comes in, suddenly all these regulatory authorities become active, and they realize now the RP will give everything. And then they call upon the RP, give it by this weekend, give it in 24 hours, give this by 48 hours. And therefore, maintaining all that data, ensuring that you have a team which controls all this data is critical. You need to have a team which controls this data. You need to ensure that none of this data is destroyed, because there is going to be challenges. For example, in one case, we found that the SAP license had not been renewed. And therefore, data was in multiple locations, but pulling it out of the various laptops, pulling it out of the various computers, ensure that it's all in one server, and that server is then backed up. So that I'll request someone to go on mute, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, could you please go on mute? I'm not able to see who it is, but if someone could please guide her. Thank you. And yes, you may have to see that it's not just someone with forensic capability. You may require some technical expert who's able to pull out that information. In one company, we had that challenge where we had to pull out information from the various laptops, pull out information from other locations, and bring it all into one location.
May I request all to mute your mic?
नहीं नोट आया ना बन गया प्रिंट आउट निकाल लेना उसके
If it's possible to mute
नहीं नोट्स पेपर नोट्स के भरोसे हैं
It seems that it's Manmohan Jha who needs to be muted.
And ma'am Rastogi, Ritu Rastogi is also.
Ritu Rastogi.
Okay.
Okay.
Done, sir, done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. When it comes to claims now, I know there's enough training, enough multiple study circles, multiple sessions of all our institutes, multiple judgments, multiple information available on how to deal with claims and how not to. It is still work in progress, shall I say. All of us are still learning. It continues challenges. I picked up a very good phrase in today's morning papers, when India and Pakistan, and India said it is now for Pakistan to make a genuine attempt to restart the dialogue. And it's for Pakistan to show credible, verifiable, and irreversible evidence that there is no other terror initiated from their country. Credible, verifiable, irreversible. Shall I say this is the ask of every RP when it comes to verification of a claim, that I want credible, verifiable, irreversible evidence. What you will get is none of the three, or you will get one of the three, or perhaps two out of the three. Getting 3 out of 3 is, I shall say, is a utopian dream. In some cases, rare cases, you will get credible, verifiable, irreversible. Otherwise, in multiple cases, there's always going to be gray. Fortunately, there is enough guidance from the adjudicating authorities, the NCLT, NCLAT, and Supreme Court, that at the end of the day, the RP is only a collator, is an administrator, is not an adjudicator. That happens only during liquidation. He's supposed to look at the information on record, information which is provided by the applicant, information, agree that information with that, the information which the corporate debtor gives him, try and verify that information with that information which the corporate debtor gives him, and information which is available in public sources, and compare all of that together and make the best estimate. That is the role. Yes, it is going to lead to challenges. This is continuous till such time, like I said, that we have multiple cases decided by the NCLT, NCLAT, and Supreme Court. The dust will not settle on this area. And the only way to deal with this is, again, we have found that if we have a selected SPOCs again for each kind of claim. So in one large case where we had over 50 financial creditors and there was thousands of crores of financial credit, we had 2 members. Luckily, one of them was an ex-banker. So 2 of them who dealt with all bankers and dealt with the claims of banks. And the challenges you'll have with claims when it's financial creditors is the security, it's whether it was on a moratorium, was there any restructuring, no restructuring, what's the level of interest, penalty, are there any cross guarantees, are there any obligations other than what is on the books? All that complexities requires someone who understands this financial credit very well. Operational credit requires a different skill set. Someone who's willing to engage with operational creditors, have a higher level of patience, able to understand local language, sit down, educate the operational creditor. Some of them will be MSMEs, some of them will be contractors, vendors. Maybe you have to fill out the form with them, get them to fill it out, but explain everything to them, and then get it all done. And with workmen and employees, it requires a lot of human intervention, not just on phone or through emails or anything else, but in human interactions. Only then can you sort it right. And do we need to do this? Yes. Even though you'll say in the code, it's nowhere written, but my suggestion is only to make your life easier, help that person to help you. So be a little proactive. Simple things. Acknowledge every claim that you get. It helps. The person feels nice, at least you've recorded it. Otherwise, they keep phoning you, Baba, did you get my claim? Even if you acknowledge that they're happy, then you need to send at least within as short as possible that, yes, I verified this, but these are still pending. And if you have a system in place for all of this, and you do require it. In one case, we had thousands of cases from, shall I say, from subscribers. It was a telecom company. So, and all these subscribers had their SIM card. So there were claims for even from 200 rupees to a few thousand rupees, but each one filed their claims. And my gosh, trying to verify that level, it required a structured approach, a dedicated team, again, systematized, and trying to use technology to the extent possible. There is still vagueness on statutory liabilities, contingent liabilities. To the extent you're able to disclose it, the way we found it very useful was proactively reach out to every regulatory authority, every statutory authority. So what we got was, we go to the corporate debtor in the very first week, we got a list of all their regulatory authorities they are in touch with, all officers. So you give me a list of every office you're in touch with, sales tax, customs, income tax. If you're income tax, you're talking to 6 officers because you're operating in 6 locations. Give us all the 6 addresses. So whoever has sent you any notice, whoever you're in correspondence with, any address you have, please give us. Even that may be an address which was last communication 3 years ago. Take it. And then we wrote to everybody saying, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, sir, madam, please note that this company has been admitted to CRP. Attached is a copy of the public announcement, which you would have filed. There's a link to which you can get the order, a link to the website where they can pick up the order if they want, and please file your claim. You explicitly say, please file your claim, please let us, and also we also put down, please don't further any suits because there is a moratorium happening. Please don't ask for any penalties or interest, etc., blah, blah, blah. And that in a way automatically engage. So then this again is a very strong defense, because tomorrow, suppose after the CRP, we still find some authorities coming and saying, but you never issued the advertisement in my area of jurisdiction. So we sent you a notice, and then they keep quiet. So if you're able to send this, it's not a notice, but you send that intimation to all such regulatory authorities, it would be of great benefit. Again, it's not to protect yourself, but again, with the intent. What is the intent? The honorable intent you must keep to yourself is, I must help that person to help me. The more I'm able to help the other person, the easier is it for me to get the entire list of claims sorted out. That's on claims. Resolution, again, as someone will tell you, most critical item. After all, resolution is the actually objective which you're supposed to achieve. Everything else is a means to an end. Resolution is the objective. If you don't get a resolution, but you run a fantastic CRP process, you still failed. So you must get a resolution. In fact, now it's the market expectations are, if I see the last bullet point, that the RP will proactively sell the company. He will go out. Even Dr. Sahu said recently, some time ago, that RP is not just supposed to, issue a public announcement and sit and wait for people to come and say, please, I want to buy your company. No, you have to very actively go out, meet various people. Literally, it's like a sell-side mandate for an M&A. What we have found is one very good idea is put a teaser together. Teaser meaning 2-3 pages. 2-3 pages saying these are the critical facts. And you, of course, the bias is to present the goods. But saying it's a caveat is all, you'll get a lawyer who will fill 1 page of all caveats, saying that, listen, whatever all details, you can go and look in the information memorandum. But this teaser will give you a very good gist of the corporate debtor. 1. Second, it gives you a gist of timelines. And third, what is the ask? So when you present the gist of corporate debtor, you present all the positives. You print on all the issues. Say, this is the total debt, these are the issues. And you say, please go to the information memorandum, everything else is written there. We'd be happy to engage with you. And that is again a great way of trying to reach out to everybody. It's like a teaser, and you got to be conscious that what you put in the teaser doesn't have any confidential proprietary information, but it's more public oriented, so that you're able to go out actively and seek resolution plans. Be mindful that you remain transparent with every resolution applicant. Sometimes we found that use of virtual data rooms is fantastic, because then nobody can challenge you to say that you are partial in the distribution of information. It's all in one place. Anybody asks a question, you post the answer for the benefit of all. So it's clearly tracked who looked at what, when was. So then, tomorrow a resolution applicant cannot say it. I was challenged in court once where somebody said, but I never looked at this information. This is clearly, In fact, we have got a list of when all you downloaded this information as well. Proactively engage with resolution applicants and ensuring that this is ultimately the critical objective of running a CRP process. I may try and extend that a little more to say that with the further understanding of the market of this process, the importance of IBC, all these players now are critical. And the way you engage with all of them, each of them will have a significant impact on the CRP. The COC, like I said, requires to build consensus. The promoters, you need to have a degree of trust, but keep them at arm's length. Management requires a more consultative approach. Officers and staff requires patience and empathy. Labor requires continuous communication and handholding. Claimants require higher degree of education to explain to them what they need to do. Statutory authorities, you need to be as responsive as possible, so that if you're not able to send the information, they say, please give this information by 6-7 days. The idea is to call them in 2 days, saying, sir, ma'am, this information I'm sending you, this information I can't do it because this is the problems. I'm getting this done. Please give me some time. If you were to respond, if you are responsive, then they are fine. Then they know that you're trying your best. And similarly with investigative authorities, be mindful that you will have to spend some physical time to go and meet such people. Suppliers, vendors, contractors is required to filter those which are critical, those who require to be educated, because the MSME sector, and each of them have different characteristics within themselves. Customers can be quite critical for you to be able to run your business. And customers, the broader one is your distributors, your dealers, all of that, your entire sale mechanism. Again, their continuous engagement with them, seeking information from customers, how's the market happening, listening to that information is a great learning. Resolution applicants, understanding that this is a sell-side mandate that you have, and you're trying to talk to a potential buyer. So be respectful for everybody, and hopefully you're able to cajole that person to buy your company. Yes, you have to have that level of personal emotion that it is almost like your company, even though you hold it in trust. Adjudicating authorities, actually, I will learn more from you all. I know all of us are now becoming slowly more and more. I know Mr. Sharma is a master at presenting himself at the adjudicating authorities. Some of our learned lawyers here in this group will teach me a lot more of how to present at the NCLT and NCLAT. But yes, they expect the RP to be present at hearings, to be able to be informed, and to be able to give the information sometimes when they ask you for it. And sometimes when an RP says it rather than your counsel, it has more weightage. And regulator, yes, this is also most critical. It's a key area in the sense of, and even recently they have amended the regulations to say there is further forms to be filled up and keep the regulator informed. You will get multiple calls from their team. You will need to be patient with the regulator, because you'll be asked the same information perhaps more than once, but the idea is to give it. After all, they are there to try and help you and to try and assist you through the process. This last statement on this slide has helped me in relationships. When you are clear that with whoever you deal with, that you're following the concept of mutual benefit, having a joint responsibility and a shared destiny, that you're not working at cross purposes, but you're working with a single-minded purpose. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. I will have a few takeaways for all of us. We repeat to ourselves that this is still uncharted territory. There is still a lot to go, which is unprecedented. And the only way we can do it is if we keep integrity and full transparency in what we do. Because if transparency starts with communication, and if we are honest and complete, if we are transparent, responsive, and communicative, keeping in mind confidentiality, these are the 4 elements, we demonstrate integrity. It requires constant engagement, be conscious of all the numerous stakeholders. And lastly, it's not what you do, it's how you do it, which is critical, in the manner in which you demonstrate it. So don't take decisions in the middle of the night. Don't take decisions quietly in your room or all by yourself. Try and do it as much as possible in the front of management, in the front of the committee of creditors, with the committee of creditors. Even if it may be operational decisions, you may take the decision, but inform, take their views, take their counsel, and you will do better. And last but not the least, today, the critical element is reskilling and upskilling. This pandemic world has told us the change which is happening in this world is only furthering and accelerating. And if we are to be of relevance to society, it only requires us to ensure that we continuously upskill and reskill ourselves. With that, I will stop sharing. I'll pause and complete this presentation, and I'm open for all questions and discussions, inputs, and comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivekji, for your wonderful presentation. So the golden line is wisdom comes through suffering. So one who has suffered knows the pitfalls of the entire mechanism. So there are various questions from the participants. First of all, Mr. Vijaykumar has asked a very pertinent question. So when the CD itself doesn't have a lot of resources, then how to manage the resources and the things? Because the kind of assignments you have discussed in the presentations are large ones, but most of the resolution professionals are facing where CD is very small and have very little resources to cater all those things.
Very good question. No, there are some cases which have been, it's not, I won't say, there have been, shall I say, it's been a variety of cases which I've done. I know Ms. Nan was not able to be audible at that point of time. Just for the benefit of all, not try to be of self-praise, but just give you context. I have been the resolution professional on Bhushan Steel and Binani, which are large cases. SPS Steel, which is a Calcutta-based company, not that large, medium-sized. Murli Industries, which is a shut case. And Aircell, which is a telecom company. So I have fortunately seen different sizes and different stages of operations. But yes, again, the guidance of IBPI has been quite clear on this. You don't need to duplicate. Don't duplicate resources. See what the corporate debtor has. If it has got like I said, if it has got a strong accounts team, then what you need one person in your team to oversee that they're doing it right. But if they don't have an accounts team, then yes, then you will need to supplement. So each corporate debtor look at which are the pockets of the organization. Therefore, the organization structure becomes critical. See which elements they have and use that, exploit that. There's no point trying to duplicate those resources. But in a small company where there isn't many resources, there is one or two persons, a lot of it you'll have to do on your own with your own team. I hope that was useful, Mr. Paliwan.
Thank you. The next question is relating to section 19 sub clause 2, where you force the various stakeholders to cooperate with you. Is it effective? Because lots of time what is happening that those applications are not getting decided till the completion of the CIRP. So what is the best remedy for the RP?
Again, good question. I will use what I've learned again through my life as an RP. There's something called a tea coffee question. Would you like some tea or coffee? And the answer is yes. So is section 19 application to adjudicating authority useful or not useful? The answer is yes. Meaning what? Meaning practically it is of no use. Let's be clear. If you're going to be depending on your section 19 application for the officers and promoters to be responsible to you, it's not going to happen, because yes, it is delayed. It is to protect you, shall I say, from litigation tomorrow or regulatory oversight tomorrow. Where someone will ask you, why did you not complain to NCLT? You should have complained to NCLT if you didn't get any information. So at least you put your section 19 application inside after trying 2-3 times. But realize that the most effective way of getting support from management is to work with them.
Thank you, sir. There are a lot of questions regarding section 29A. So the resolution professionals are facing in identifying the people who are actually related. And there is a suspicion that there are proxies which are not exactly falling in the definition, but they are pitching for the resolution plan. So how to balance the law and your responsibility to protect the company?
I think there is a lot of grayness in this. My humble suggestion is it is not the RP's role to do an investigation. I know there are lots of forensic auditors, and there are now saying, "Hey, this is RP's critical responsibility, most critical. You have to do this," and they will quote various sections and that. No, the law says the RP is supposed to look at 29A based on the matter on record. The explicit is, I must get that affidavit, I must get a declaration, and I must look at the information on record. That's all. I'm not supposed to do that investigation. It is after, but if I am based on the information on record, based on the information which I have from the corporate data, I do a prima facie view whether it's required or not. Arguably, if you look at 29A, you can never finish it even in 6 months. Everybody is a relative today. If I start seeking every company, every relative which is connected to the promoter, I'll never finish. Then in fact, the person who says you must do this, if you ask him, okay, I challenge you on your scope of work, tell me which is your adequate scope of work, he will himself will tell you, no, you need to do at least 6 months of work. Then what's the point of doing it? This is an area where ignorance is bliss, little knowledge is dangerous. So take it on record, take the information which is there. You have to trust but verify. Verify what? That which which you clearly know. That, listen, based on my other interactions with the management, when I ask them for a list of related parties, I look at the disclosure in the financial statement of related party. I look at the secretarial records, which is disclosing which are the related parties. That's what I'm supposed to do. But I'm not supposed to carry out an investigation and go on some sort of a forensic investigation, see, oh my gosh, is everybody a related party? That's my humble suggestion. If someone would like to correct me, I would love to learn.
Thank you, sir. You have summarized it really crisply. So there are one of the issues which is being faced by the resolution professional is that they are appointed by COC at some point of time, and some of the participants in the COC wants to move the process in a particular manner. So they have a difficult choice to face, whether to getting removed or whether to continue under the pressure. So what is your suggestion to the RPs in that situation?
Never quit. A professional never quits. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. If somebody wants to remove you, that's his problem. I will do my job. The responsibility placed on me by the court. Once you're an RP, you're an officer of the court. Yes, I'm not here to please everybody, nor am I here to please anybody. All I'm here to please is please the law. I'm an officer of the court. I will do everything transparently. I will tell you clearly why I'm doing something, how I'm doing something, and what I'm doing. All three. Why, what, how. I will explain it. I will minute it. Thereafter, you still take offense, fine. Then we go to NCLT. NCLT says what you did is wrong. Fair enough. But I did it honestly. And integrity means conviction of purpose, Mr. Sir. Conviction of purpose, an actual demonstrated conviction of purpose. Very easy to say, no, I'm honest. Saying honest, it doesn't work. But to show, to say, Mr. COC, this is what I'm doing. This is the reason, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. Explain all it. Thereafter, they say, this is to challenge you. You take a discussion. There is, RP sometimes get into this delusion again, delusion of grandeur, that we have a monopoly of wisdom. We have no monopoly of wisdom, sir. The COC knows far more than the RP. COC knows more about the company. Promoters know more. Management knows more. I will even go to say that the Chanawala sitting outside the COC meeting knows more about the company than you do. Because he has seen enough such meetings. You talk to that watchman at the gate, he will tell you more about the company than you'll ever learn. But if you keep that I'm willing to learn, but I'll still take my decision. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to please the law only. But I will learn, I will listen to you, I'll understand all your arguments, and then I will explain to you why I'm doing something. Thereafter, but don't quit. My suggestion is.
Another question which is related to the previous one is the appointment of the professionals and getting approval for their appointment and their fee as well. So these are the three important components for functioning as an RP. So how to manage the entire gamut in these difficult times?
Like I said, you first need to convince yourself on three aspects. Are they providing you tangible, attributable, measurable benefit? Define it, put it down first on paper. They're tangible, attributable, measurable. That's one. Then you're convinced, okay. Then the focus of the discussion should fundamentally be technical expertise. And again, the biggest is not the best every time. It is which is the most appropriate. If I look at a forensic auditor, I must look at someone, for example, when I looked at the telecom company, it says, okay, who's the one who's got the most experience in telecom, who has done perhaps as much as we can, who knows this industry, knows the locality. And it may be someone from outside the big four, whoever we call so-called big four, big five, big six, whichever. No, it has to be someone who knows that, the relevant. And then pick 2 or 3, pick 3. You need to pick 3. Even the guidance from all the DC orders are, from the NCLT orders are, even the various government protocols are, don't take 1. You must at least have 3. Provide a list of 3, technically competent, present all 3 of them to the COC. And then along with the COC, pick up on the costs as well. And then finally present your view as an RP as to which one you need to choose. Because again, this is not an easy task. On the one hand, you can't take a choice of the COC, because then again, the IBBS says, no, this is a decision you have to take. You can't be guided by any member or members of COC. The COCs who need to approve the cost, but to enable them to help you, helping them to help you is when you present all this. You present to the COC, listen, I've talked to all these 3. These are the technical competencies, and this is their cost, and this is therefore I've assessed them as Mr. 1, Mr. 2, and I've graded them 1, 2, and therefore I would propose Mr. 1. Please tell me if I'm wrong or right. There'll be a discussion. Most probably they will say yes if you've done it very transparently. If not, they will say no. We please request you to go look at Mr. 4 and 5 as well. We say fine. You do it 4 and 5, present all that, and then come to it. I hope that long-winded answer is useful, Mr. Paliwal.
Yes, definitely. But there are 2 more questions related to it, because this is one of the sticky issues. One is the fee of the professionals. And what if they keep on delaying the process? Then you will skip the timelines prescribed by the IBBI. So sometimes they don't give you the approval in the requisite time. So the timelines goes up, 1. And secondly, the fee part. The fee part is one of the most negotiated and debated one. So how to define the fee of the professionals? Once you have selected that these 3 are the best and suitable for the job, then the thing is that if the COC is not in your favor, is some of the things are. So what they say that they keep on that, okay, we reject this, and they reject all.
No, then, okay. The way to work it is, it requires consultation. A consultation doesn't mean only at the formal COC. Nothing stops you from going and meeting all of them. Meeting and presenting everything, saying, and talk to the officer, saying, listen, this is the information, this is what I'm doing. Do you need anything more? So that when you come to the COC, I'll have all that information ready. Tell me what all information required, because you need your internal approvals, you need all your paperwork, you need to be satisfied with the decision. Tell me what all information required before COC. Go and meet each of these members of the COC. You can't do it, you are required to be transparent again. So talk to all of them one by one. And then formally at the COC, therefore, again, you're not pushed back to say, look at 4 and 5, because you've discussed with each of them before. This is one trick, or not trick, but this is one, shall I say, a practice we have followed, and it helps. The more you consult on these matters, the more transparent you are, the easier is it for you to get the decision. It's very easy, shall I say, for us to blame the COC. Then a COC is not giving me approval. Ari Baba, it's not their responsibility to get approval. It's for you to get approval. If you put it on yourself that the onus of responsibility is me, I am the RP, I have to get the approval because I have to run the process. Tomorrow I can't blame anybody. I can't say, sir, I can't go to Adjudicator Authority and say, sir, CR, COC did not give me approval. Say, what the hell were you doing? So we have to work with each of them, sir.
Thanks.
And what was the second question? I'm sorry, Mr. Paliwal.
So the IBBI, sometimes the process goes on for consultation too long, and the IBBI guidelines prescribe a time frame to do everything. So how to manage with these?
Yeah, so then my point is, don't limit your interaction, financial creditors, only at the committee of creditors. You are free to talk to all of them outside the committee of creditors. So use that forums. You don't wait, okay, only at the committee of creditors next meeting will I get my approval. Do all your groundwork before, so that at the COC you're able to take a decision.
So the next question, which is coming from the lot of people, is regarding the preservation of the value of the assets which are located at the remote locations, where the RP is not able to appoint someone like a security agency, the credit, like the corporate debtor is not that big that you can appoint security agencies and appoint their people there. Then how to manage that entire thing, that the people don't take out the even the immovables or movables and etc. Immovable definitely that can't, but the movable they can always remove.
This is a cost benefit analysis, Mr. Paliwal. There is going to be some pilferage right through the CRP, yes. Then you got to see what's the cost of appointing a security guard vis-a-vis the value of assets at that place. Simple cost analysis. If the value of assets is less than the cost of a security guard, then you don't do anything. If the value of assets is more than the cost of a security guard, then you appoint a security guard.
Absolutely.
Yes, there is going to be, you have to admit to yourself that there is going to be some loss. But to the again, this is pure cost benefit. You don't use a gilded cage to lock a monkey.
That's a great example, sir. So there is another question is regarding the interim finance. Your presentation has covered a lot of issues regarding the interim finance, but the problem which is faced in the comparatively smaller corporate debtor is that nobody is willing to lend them money even to drive through this process, and they doesn't have an asset. Some of them are the service companies, which like after they close down, they take even the furnitures. So how to manage and the entire financing thing when the company is very small?
Yeah. So what we did was, in one case, we didn't get interim finance, but we sought contribution from the committee of creditors. Again, all of them will not pay you. They'll approve it and they'll harass you. So if they were, in this case, there were 12 financial creditors. Fortunately, 5 at least paid us. 5 made the contributions. We gave a clearance that this is a CRP cost. This is what we're incurring. We need to pay it. So it has to come from you. Thereafter, the RA will pay. We are hopeful to get an RA, but the CRP cost will be paid by the committee of creditors. So you need to fund it. I'm not asking for interim finance. I'm only asking for financing of CRP cost. It's like a tea coffee question. Yeah, so unfortunately, out of 12, 5 gave. 6 and 7 and 8, I wanted more paperwork. They asked us a bit saying, you want this and that. We gave them all the details. You know how you can spend like this. We gave them all the details. 6, 7, 8 gave. Then finally 9 and 10 gave. 11 and 12 gave us only after the resolution plan got approved. Then they know that the money is going to come back. Then they made the contribution. But some of it, yes, you as an RP will have to do some working capital self-financing.
Another thing which is preparation of the information memorandum. So far, there are very few judgments from the Apex Court, NCLT and NCLAT, which can definitely guide you what should you cover, what should you not cover. That those are only broad guidelines. So what are all the practical aspects which should form part of the information memorandum?
Good question. So yes, so this is like again, don't limit it to what is only put in the statute. You need to put everything that is relevant for a good buyer. So first is the guidance the statute gives you, both in the code as well as the CRP regulations, is a list of matter which is a minimum that you need to put. But anything else you find that is going to be relevant, it could be something which is positive. For example, in one case, we said all the mining leases which the company had and the status of each of the mining leases become very critical. So we put that in the data room. We also disclosed what is the status of each of the mining leases, what was paid, what was unpaid, what was the areas, all of that. So don't limit yourself to an information memorandum. Remember that you have a sell side mandate. So if I must present all the best, and I must present all that is relevant for a buyer to make an informed decision. And the other way of doing it is always urge the resolution applicants to say, boss, come and visit the factory. Aao, baat karte hain, come. This is a great Indian attitude. The more we discuss, sit across the table, he says, boss, you ask me anything, I'll give you all the information. So we used to get the management to sit, jo bhi puchna hai, puchiye. If I can tell you, I'll tell you. If I don't know, I don't know. So all that kind of interaction, dialogue. Well, after all, remember, you are the one selling the asset. You can't sit in your office and say, aap aaye, I'm taking it. No, you have to go. In one case, I must say, a company in liquidation, We talked to 130 applicants, sir. 130, not just in India, overseas as well. And we harassed all 130. Some of them, I went personally and said, please buy, please buy. Still no. Some of it works, some of it doesn't work.
One of the things in information memorandum happens is that the collection of the claim. So the law simply says that RP has to collect the claim. It doesn't have an adjudicatory power. Now, when it comes to the claim, the law says that 90 days you have to accept. Post 90 days, the people move an application. Even after post 90 days, there are the people who doesn't make the claim. They are reflected in the books of accounts. And some people come post the approval of the resolution plan. So there are wide variety of the claimant which comes. So how to categorize these claims and whether they should be part of the information memorandum, and if yes, how to present them, because that's the liability side, that's not the asset. Every person likes the asset, how much assets I'm buying, but nobody likes to see what is the contingent which is unknown and I should venture into. So please guide us how to handle all these kinds of the things.
Okay. This is still work in progress as far as the law is concerned. There's still such time that the NCLT, NCLAT, in some cases Supreme Court has to decide these matters on this claim is work in progress. So for example, your first question, can I verify a claim as an RP which is received after the due date? Based on what we are seeing with the NCLT and all, they still believe it is still the RP's responsibility to verify claims till the time that the plan is approved. Old law, but still people look at it as that being the law. Now, till such time, NCLAT or Supreme Court says, oh, what nonsense is this? RP is not supposed to look at this claim. Some case comes like that. This is quietly what people are doing. Is this explicitly the law? No. But till the plan is approved, the RP is expected to still look and collate all claims. It is different in liquidation. Liquidation is clear. There have been more than one ruling saying you cannot look at anything after that. I think 30 days period, right? After liquidation. You are not supposed to look at any claim. Anybody whose claim has not been admitted before that time, is not been adjudicated. Liquidator has to adjudicate. He has to go to court. Liquidator again can't go to court. The person whose claim has not been verified has to go to court. In liquidation, it's quite clear. In CRP, it's not yet clear, sir. Is my humble submission. I know there'll be many cases, but it's still both sides. NCLT still asks, we have still seen cases where NCLT is accepting claims. So what is RP? Therefore, in this practically what I'm supposed to do as an RP, I present everything. I say up to and I show the date of claim now. Fortunately, that IBBI's table is a very good table. It shows date of receipt of claim and put all the claims. Luckily, from a RA's point of view, there are now more than one judgment, and now the plan is well defined that all liabilities up to the CRP commencement date, yeah, whether such liability is even decided later, all of that liabilities till that date are all cleared as per plan.
That's true, sir. So the next question which arises is, what is the liability? So yesterday I was attending one of the seminars where Justice Mukhopadhyay was the speaker, the prominent speaker, and he is known for his thought and outspoken argument how the entire law should be said. He raised one of the arguments that when you are collating the claims, it has to be a liability. So he took the thing, he gave one of the examples which says that, say, if the claim is done after 3 years, then it's barred by the limitation. So whether you should accept those claims or not, whether you have rejected those or not, whether that, how to do it. So his opinion was that there are very few RP who is taking this brave decision. So are the RP supposed to define the liability separately and other claims separately?
No, it's very easy for him to say RP need to be brave. If RP is brave, it's the first of the NCLT will smash him. Saying, who the hell are you? I faced that. Saying, but who the, you're supposed to look, you're supposed to facilitate, you're supposed to interact with everybody. RP is supposed to verify every claim. How can you say you didn't verify this claim? I've been challenged. And again, I've also been challenged. You are not supposed to know, you're not supposed to interpret the law. You're not a law. You're not the law. The law will be interpreted by the NCLT. You're supposed to follow the law. Officer of the court means you're supposed to follow the law. To follow the law means understood. I have to look at all claims, see if it is there in the corporate. Suppose in the corporate debtors books, it is still shown as liability, sir. The corporate debtor is admitting it's a liability. Then 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, kya farak padta hai? It is still admitted by the corporate debtor as a liability. The person is claiming it. You put it. And finally, what is the liability? What is insolvency? Insolvency is when there's an imbalance in the balance sheet. There's an imbalance in the balance sheet. Why? Because the value of assets, which is stated to the balance sheet as recorded, shows it to be all equal. Only then a balance sheet tallies. But the actual value of assets, if it's supposed to be 100, is actually 80. And the value of liabilities instead of 100 is 120. That's the imbalance. So you have 120 of liabilities and 80 of assets. Therefore, there's an imbalance in the balance sheet leading to insolvency. And that needs to be resolved. How do you resolve? You define the assets as 80. How do you get the value of assets at 80? Through a valuer who tells you what is your fair value. Then you have a resolution applicant who says, I am willing to pay X for all these assets. And that is the value of your balance sheet. It is, if you say, I'm willing to give you 90 rupees, 90 rupees is the value of assets, and 90 is the total liability is taking. And that is what on day one, when he takes over, is the liability. So if you say the total liability is 120, 130, 140, whatever you collate, aggregate, against that 140, I am paying 90. How will the 90 be distributed to 140? As per the plan. As long as it's not discriminatory to within a class of creditors, and it follows the law, and you're getting whatever that minimum liquidation value, etc. And the COC applies its commercial wisdom, which is infinite, and approves a plan, and it's done by more than you're through.
Yes, sir. So this is a very good reasoning and a very valid classification. The classification is the challenge which the Supreme Court is still struggling. What is the classification? So the thing is, interestingly, Section 30 talks about the two kinds of creditor, financials and operational. But when it comes to the newly inserted sections, then they talk about Section 53. So how you classify it? There are peculiar examples. So once in a secured creditor, you create a movable, create a charge of like a movable on things like a chair or tobacco C or an intellectual property right. He is a secured creditor. Another secured creditor is on the land. So the entire IP has vanished. The intellectual property right has vanished because of the insolvency and everything. Brand doesn't have a value. But at the same time, the real assets, that's what the real estate is called for, the real only asset which is real, the person also are the secured credit. So how to classify creditors and make sure that only the same class of people get the same treatment, not the one who has created a brand security and one who is on the real asset. So how to resolve that dilemma?
To see more the similarities rather than differences. I would like to suggest that at the end of the day, if you were to aggregate all secured, all financial creditors as one, and all the financial creditors realize that if they see themselves as one homogeneous unit, the chance of getting the plan approved is better. If they start seeing differences among themselves, then it's never going to work. In one company, we had that problem. The secured creditors and unsecured creditors, it is such a situation that if the secured creditors were not getting more than liquidation value, they were going to reject the plan. And if the unsecured creditors are not going to get anything, they were going to reject the plan. So in that sort of situation, you have to come to a sort of a common ground, and sometimes maths helps. Highest common multiple, lowest common factor, trying to find those numbers where everybody then approves. And then when you're treating the entire class similarly, then there's less chance of disputes, sir. It's when you start when a resolution applicant starts, and this we learned in Binani, when you start identifying different monies to different types of financial creditor, then there is dispute. But if you try and see homogeneously as one, and I know that if we work together as one, only then the plan can get approved, then there is success. Mr. Paliwal, I know Mr. Chopra has been raising his hand for quite some time.
Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Chopra, please go ahead, ask your question.
My question is, how do you see the relevance of forensic audit in case of pre-packs, particularly in case of MSMEs, keeping in view the fact or your experience in case of Binani and Bhushan Steels? What kind of outcome we can have from forensic audits, if at all this is made applicable to MSMEs in pre-packs?
Based on what I'm reading of the pre-pack and MSME, the way I see the law finally to come through, sir, I expect, and I could be totally wrong, a very limited transaction review audit to be laid down by the law. And I'll tell you why. Because in a pre-pack, the debtor is still in control, and the role of the RP in that case is to try and get the plan, resolution plan, shall I say, either from the promoter or from others, which is most effective. So in fact, requires different skill sets of RPs.
Exactly.
And I would therefore suggest that the law, when it comes, they will not impose this burden on an RP or further TRA. They may say limited. They may say you may check promoter transaction related party. They may just say 1 or 2 items, I suspect, if at all. And MSME, sir, you're right. I would suggest it's even more difficult, because MSME you face 2 fundamental problems in MSME. One, most transactions are MSME actually related party. Most.
Right.
So to say that everything is at arm's length, Baba, I only deal with my brother-in-law. What to do? So there are who are you going to compare with?
Exactly.
One. Second, most MSME transactions are verbal commitments. It's a paper दिखाओ. It's a paper कुछ नहीं, but 20 साल से चल रहा है ऐसे ही. So then it's impossible for you to do a TRA. And I
practically
know that,
worthless. Practically worthless.
Correct, sir. Correct. But
thank you.
I think that the resolution professional will still be called upon to serve purpose. To say, boss, if you know for a fact कि boss siphoning हो रहा है, and all of us are smart enough to know कि कहाँ हो रहा है sir, अगर मोटा मोटा हुआ तो, if you know some, then those we should immediately plug.
Right. Fully agree.
Thank you, sir.
Fully. Thank you.
So one of the question is asked by Mr. Alok, and he is asking what is the best practice to conduct the COC meetings?
That I have to ask Mr. Sheikh. He's a master at it. I will keep this philosophy in mind, sir, which I said earlier. Keep this in mind: mutual benefit, joint responsibility, shared destiny. Mutual benefit, joint responsibility, shared destiny. If that be your attitude with committee of creditors, and you explain to the committee of creditors, boss, if we work at cross purposes, we are going nowhere. If we do things together, we will fight with each other. We will shout at each other, we will challenge each other, but at the end of the day, we will come to a consensus. In one meeting, sir, the consensus came only at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm literally 3 o'clock in the morning seems to be something which is in my stars. One long meeting went only at 3 o'clock consensus came. But till that time, we did not close the meeting. I did not close the meeting. I said, we have to come, we have to finish it today. Come what may. We finished it. Luckily, those financial creditors who came for the meeting also had been directed to boss, aaj last day, jo karna hai karo, khatam karo aaj. So luckily they said, boss, they were all very scared to take it to liquidation. They said, kuch bhi ho plan to aana hai aaj. So he said, come what may, we will find consensus. But the other element is, when you're dealing with a committee of creditors, it is very important for us resolution professionals to remember one fundamental thing, sir. These are the financial experts. Don't ever forget that. The committee of creditors know far more about banking, finance, industry than you will ever be as an RP. You may be even 30, 40 years in a profession, the outstanding professional, and you may have been an ex-banker. But I respectfully submit that the collective wisdom of all these financial creditors in a committee of creditors is far more than in one individual. That's why the Supreme Court has said the collective wisdom is far more, is supreme. The collective wisdom of the committee of creditors is supreme on commercial matters. And that is what, if we respect that, if we say, boss, I've come here to learn from you, and then together, it's a benefit for us, for the corporate debtor. We are jointly responsible, and we have a shared accountability on this. Then you will work.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rajkamal wants to ask a question.
So,
Sarangiji, you are not audible. Please unmute.
Rajkumarji, you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah. It was really very nice hearing your concept regarding the CRP and all those things. My question is relating to the basic structure of the IBC. Basically, the purpose of IBC is to take the viable one to the resolution path and the unviable one to the liquidation path. So basically, the financially challenged or the economically challenged. If the financially challenged company, then definitely the CRP process is the best path to take them to the CRP process. But as far as the economically challenged companies are there, then that sooner or later that needs to be taken to the liquidation part. We have experienced also that the majority of the CRP cases is going to the liquidation, but unfortunately they have to face the CRP process, and the cost on that CRP process is also diluting the value of the assets of the corporate debtor. So don't you think that there should be at the initial stage, at the time of admission itself, there should be a segregation between these two class of companies, where whether that should be taken to the liquidation part or to the CRP process, and that will give a better purpose of the IBC. And that is the basically the third process. I would like to hear from you, your point of view.
That's a very good point you're making, sir. This is again, you're right. You're absolutely right. The stated objective is that the asset which is there, either if it's financially distressed, means the industry is sound, but the asset needs to be given to somebody else who has better corporate governance or better capabilities to exploit that asset. It's quite possible there is economic distress, meaning the entire industry model is gone. Then you need to change the use of such asset, the exploitation for the benefit of society. The change it through liquidation, whereby it is sold as assets, the person then deploys it in another way. You're right, that's the stated principle. But sir, Indian psyche has still to develop. We have moved away from a point of view when you say someone took debt. Oh, you took debt. My gosh, means you are committed pap. That was the earlier psyche. Now it is the psyche is, how can you say liquidate? Even now, the courts, even liquidation, now you have this unique concept of section 230. In liquidation, I mean, you tried CRP, nothing has happened, but the court will still say, try 230. Then after 230, you'll say, okay, first then try sale of going concern. And sale of going concern, now they say two types. Sale of going concern as a company, sale of going concern as a business. Now, what the difference is, practically, I still don't know. But, so they say, last straw, meaning, Baba, you, you literally take that to the ground, take it 6 feet under, only then you liquidate. So human psychology or human psyche, I won't say psychology, psyche, sir, is still to accept that liquidation is not a bad thing. That liquidation is not a bad thing is still something which has not gone into our psyche, our overall ecosystem psyche. It is there among lenders. I think bankers, COC and all are appreciating it. The legal system also has to appreciate it. But they believe that is liquidation a sort of cleansing of a lot of wrong. They're worried that through liquidation, are you trying to cleanse a lot of wrong which you actually should need to be exposed? So because of this challenge, it'll take a little time when hopefully the Indian market opens out more to the structured debt funds globally, distress funds who bring up some of these practices, when they realize that liquidation actually is now a very common norm in society, because change is so radical, change is so drastic. What was a telecom company earlier, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is radically changed. Someone who was, operating those SMSs used to get, now you call it SMS, used to previously get those, what they were called, how it has radically changed. Now someone who has to make that, he's finished. Now you're going to 5G, so someone who's on 2G, 3G is gone. So the radical change of every aspect of deployment of assets, exploitation of assets, is still something which has to go into our psyche. Once that happens, sir, when we appreciate that, yes, this is economic distress, there is a clear distinction between economic distress and financial distress, as you clearly explained it. Once that has happened, it's more popular amongst all of us, then it will happen, sir. But it will take time.
Let's hope that comes soon.
It'll come.
Hope that comes soon.
It'll come, but like
that will be better. That will be a meaningful segregation of the IBC purpose.
Correct. No, like I was taught also, sir, every economic reform has to be balanced with political reality. So similarly, this economic reform also has to be balanced with Indian psyche.
Yeah.
But don't you think that when the NCLTs insist on selling it as a going concern, one time, second time, third time, directly or indirectly, they themselves play an invisible hand in value destruction. Whatever could have been achieved on the first go cannot be achieved on the third go. And then again, revision, and at the end of the day, you land up nowhere.
Yes, sir. Sadly right. Sadly right.
Thank you.
One of the thanks, Mr. Sarangiji and Rajivji. So all the answers begins with a good question. So one of the last questions I would like to ask is, the entire struggle in the COC is get the maximum voting rights. In that quest of getting voting rights, what happens that sometimes financial creditors exaggerate their claims. There are compounding multiple times and extra compounding over and above the compounding. So how to deal with such financial creditors when you actually realize that so many things, compounding, penalty and extra penalty, are mounted on the top of each other in a claim?
The learning from today's newspaper, sir, credible, verifiable, irreversible. So you tell the banker, show me credible evidence that this actually is a claim.
That's true.
And so if you deal transparently with the banker, sir, then the person deals transparently with you. And it requires a bit of concern. You tell him, Baba, aap penalty pe penalty dalenge to kaise hoega? Then he will also laugh and say, okay, TK, I'll revise my claim. If the person is extremely hostile, he says, no, how you can, how? Then you have to go look at the letter of law, look at the agreement. He says, show me where in the agreement. And sometimes the best way I have found, sir, and I'll digress a little, of explaining the content of an agreement to somebody is not to explain it to him, but to get him to read it and learn for himself. For example, I'll share this experience, sir. I had a director in one of my companies who, in the very first meeting, he was a very experienced IAS officer. He came first meeting I called board of directors meeting. So I called it meeting of the directors of the board. I didn't call it meeting of the board of directors, though there's a lot of vagueness and grayness, no, sir, whether a board exists, not exists, board, right, responsibility, suspension, what is suspended, what is not suspended, still fully not clear. So I said, I called a meeting of the directors of the board. Listed companies were required. So first meeting he came and he said, and he was, if you put rye in a tawa, you know how it bursts.
Yes.
But. So in the beginning, you have to let that rye burst. So I let him burst. But he was very senior to me. So he came very well prepared, fantastically, brilliant man. And he said, the law says the board of directors are suspended. So there's nothing, you can't call me. I should not have come for this meeting. I was not required to come. There's nothing you can make me do. I don't need to be here. I'm going away. He started that way. I said, correct, sir, absolutely right. So I said, I was guided by my lawyers. So let us go and read the law together, sir, and I will take your guidance. So I said, okay, first, sir, let us look at sir, please show me where, help me understand what you did. So he showed me that section, I think 14, 15, 16, where it says, no, the director board is suspended. The suspended is only the powers of the board. He says, oh, the powers of the board. Sir, oh, these are powers. I said, oh, these are powers. So then what about duties? I said, oh, what about some duties, sir? He said, okay. Then I said, sir, let's look at the definition of personnel. Definition of personnel is directors, officers, all are required to. So then I went, who are required to support who are required to support the RP? He said, then we went to that section and he read it out. He said, personnel are required to support. No, directors are not required to support. Only personnel are required to support. I said, very good. Let us look at what is definition of personnel and officers. Let us understand what is definition. And then he himself read it. And he himself read that personnel includes directors. So he said, oh, I am required to help you. Rather than me show it to him, he read it for himself and he told me that he has to help me. And he then thereafter became my greatest asset on the board. He was guiding me on every matter. Because he knew SEBI, he knew everything far better than I did. So he said, no, Vijay, you have to do it like this. This is how we have to put it like this. And he was drafting resolutions for me. And that is how you get. So similarly, if the banker says, oh, the penalty is payable this way, so please show me. And if he reads it and he understands it, then better than you trying to force it on you, force it on you. I thought that that might work. Sometimes, not all the time.
Hopefully, sir. Hopefully, sir. So it was a great learning. And from here, I hand over to Mr. Vishalji, who will take it further. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Paliwal. Beautifully facilitated.
Thank you, Manishji. Thank you very much. Hope I am audible.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's an honor and privilege to have been asked to offer a vote of thanks for this event. On behalf of Daily Study Circle of Insolvency Professional and myself, I extend hearty gratitude to the speaker, IP Mr. Vijaykumar V. Iyer, for sharing his graceful experience and practical tips with us. I'm sure the experience of Mr. Iyer will be helpful for all of us. I am very thankful to IP Advocate Shri Madhusudan Sharma, convener of this study circle, for being a guiding light of the group. I am thankful to IP and Advocate Mr. Manish Paliwal for moderating question answer session very beautifully, covering lots of area of our concern as IP. I am also extending my hearty thanks to all our group core group members, IPCS and registered valuer Shri Raj Kamal Saraogi, IP engineer and registered valuer Shri Alok Kaushik, IP advocate Shri Vinod Chaurasiya, and IPCA Shri Manish Gupta for contributing their valuable time and support for organizing this event. I am also thankful to Ms. Nayan Handa, CS in practice, for anchoring the event, Mr. Varun for coordinating snapshot recording the event, and Mayank Sharma for screen recording of the event for future reference of the members. I am thankful to all the participants for attending the webinar in good number. I am sure that with the support of all our participants, the study circle will continue to organize such knowledgeable sharing events in the future. Thank you all. I request all the participants to stand up in the honor of national anthem.
The audio is not playing, sir.
Unmute the audio, sir. Madhusudan sir, unmute the video.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijayji, and thank you everybody for it.
Nice session, very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We learned a lot.